Olá, bem-vindos ao podcast da PLMJ. Conhecimento jurídico, sustentabilidade, impacto social, cultura, Fundação PLMJ. Partilha de conhecimento que importa aos nossos clientes, partilha de cultura que importa a todos. Fique desse lado. A PLMJ assinou recentemente um protocolo com a nova School of Law para ser a parceira da Universidade Nova Knowledge Center for Business, Human Rights and the Environment. É um centro académico, é inovador, é multidisciplinar, está inserido na Faculdade de Direito da Universidade Nova de Lisboa e junta uma equipa de especialistas portugueses e reputados nomes internacionais. Esta parceria é particularmente especial e relevante para a PLMJ e acontece na mesma altura em que lançámos a nossa área de Responsible Business. É para nós um gosto receber no podcast da PLMJ Claire Bright, diretora do Centro Nova BHRE, e está connosco também o Bruno Ferreira, Managing Partner do escritório e também um grande endorser deste tema. E por motivos que compreenderão, vamos ter esta conversa em inglês. Claire, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
So, should we start with the center's mission?
Absolutely. And first of all, let me say how delighted we are about this partnership. So the work that we conduct at the Nova Center for Business, Human Rights and the Environment aims to contribute to the promotion of responsible and sustainable business practices which respect human rights, including labor standards and the environment, in business activities and also throughout global value chains, and thereby that actively contribute to achieving the 2030 agenda. So at the center, we are convinced that business has a central role to play in the just transition towards a more inclusive and sustainable society, and in particular through the adoption of solid due diligence processes, companies can better identify, prevent and address the adverse human rights and environmental impacts with which they may be involved. And these due diligence processes are particularly relevant to promote, for instance, gender equality, which is Goal 5 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Decent work, Goal 8. Responsible consumption and production, Goal 12. Climate action, Goal 13. But also to promote peaceful and inclusive societies, fostering sustainable development, providing access to justice for all, and building effective, accountable and inclusive institutions at all levels, which is Goal 16.
Claire, how do you see the interaction between academia, a law firm like PLMJ, and we'll go into that a little bit down the road on this conversation, and also the companies? Is there a desire from the corporate side to engage in such change of mindset?
Absolutely. We have been seeing over the past few years a growing desire from the corporate side to engage. Last year, I co-authored a study for the European Commission on due diligence requirements through the supply chains, where we spoke with stakeholders, including companies throughout Europe. And we saw a growing number of companies that are supporting regulation in the field because they also see that it's important for them to level the playing field, to provide legal certainty, and also to have a uniform standard, especially when we speak about developments at the European level rather than fragmented standards in different countries and different jurisdictions. And so there is very much that growing appetite, I would say, for regulation in that field. And of course, the role of law firms, the role of PLMJ is absolutely crucial in accompanying this change towards sustainable business practices and helping understand the legal framework and put it in practice.
Bruno, that's the question. Where do we come in? And why did we go on board?
Yeah, I think for us, we're very excited to be a part of this.
We are?
It's something that we've been working on and thinking about for a long time right now. It started both in a pro bono work around impact, but also in regular work that we do in the finance sector. So it's basically initially been focused on sustainable finance and work around asset managers that are interested in going into the ESG focused funds and that type of asset management activity. But also, at the same time, we were fortunate enough to have a partnership with the Gulbenkian Foundation, where we helped their social impact startup Maze, both in two fronts that they have. One is the MazeX Startup Accelerator, and the other is the Mustard Seed Maze Fund that they have set up, and we've helped them set up. So, in addition to this type of client work, both pro bono and regular work, we've also internally started a discussion around these issues. And it was, I would say, extremely serendipitous, the fact that we had both our clients and the people that work in the office be concerned about these topics. And that's the perfect way of starting the discussion and then creating awareness, both internally and doing a bit of evangelizing with the clients also.
That's really, really important. Claire, what do you expect the output of the center to be?
So the two main pillars of the activity of the center are twofold. First of all is to conduct and disseminate high-quality research on the regulatory developments in the field of business and human rights. And in particular, we believe that it's essential to clarify the role of law, both at the Portuguese level and at the European level, in responsible business conduct and sustainability. But equally, it's also very important to make the law accessible to the main stakeholders, and that obviously include companies, investors, civil society, etc. So in this respect, the first output would be to produce high-impact publications that is accessible. The second output is linked to the second pillar of the activities of the center, which is to develop awareness raising and capacity building. I think this is a really important point, because if we look at the first national inquiry on responsible business conduct in Portugal, which was published in December 2019, what we see is that at the moment, less than 1 in 5 companies have human rights due diligence processes in place. And we also find differences within companies between, for instance, larger companies and small and medium enterprises. But these low levels of corporate human rights and environmental due diligence practices are actually correlated with the lack of awareness of the applicable legal framework by companies. So, for instance, we see when we look at small and medium enterprises or micro enterprises, levels of awareness being as low as 28% of the international standards.
And we know that they stand for most of the Portuguese economy, so
Exactly.
that's a huge impact.
Absolutely, it's very much the business scene in Portugal. It's a very important key, and so we at the center very much seek to actively remediate these issues through the organizations of training, but also of events involving multi-stakeholders.
And
to
we're
raise
having one
awareness.
here probably later in the we'll talk about it further down the line. Bruno, Claire was talking about law, but we have more ambitious, I would say, view on this subject, on this topic, which is that law enforcement is one side of the story, but we're talking about changing mindsets.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big points around, I think, this new, I would say, wave of discussion around ESG factors and stakeholder capitalism in general, is that before, I think we focused always a lot on what the law was saying, and most of the times we just focused on what the law was saying, but not so much about enforcing it. That's one of the big cultural problems in Portugal and in most countries. And there was a lack of, I would say, to generalize, social norm around the need to comply with these requirements, and culturally it wasn't something that was ingrained in the way that we do business in Portugal. But I think that this new discussion around these factors has helped refocus the discussion around the need of not only complying with the law, but making sure that culturally you're changing the organizations and you're changing the businesses and making sure that there's an ethical culture or a culture around human rights due diligence, and not just so much ticking the box and making sure that you have paperwork in place, the policies and human rights policy, and that you do due diligence on your suppliers, but making sure that there's this whole organizational stance around people being convinced that this is the right way to do things. And so it really becomes easier to enforce this. And if you create that culture internally and you make sure that there's this discussion around the issues, and that each time that somebody goes back a little bit to the previous ways of doing business, like in the 90s or something, that it always feels a little bit uncomfortable to them, because this is a new reality. It's not about doing things like we used to do back in the Oasis time, the so-called Portuguese Oasis in the early 90s, but it's a completely different way of doing
And
business.
it's not a fad, it's something that it's here to stay.
Yeah, it's here to stay, and especially it can give us a big competitive advantage related to other economies. So we were talking about the fact that this is mostly an SME-based economy, and so a lot what we want and where we feel this is a small country and we want these companies to be exporting companies, and there's a big advantage if you already have the proper cultural organization in place and the proper policies and things that you're already have in place, a human rights due diligence or the adequate related party transaction controls, and not so much around the accounting rules, but more around what's proper or improper. So I think that's a big advantage for the Portuguese economy.
So let's ask the tough question. And the tough question is that for a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of stockholders, these kind of themes, they don't affect positively the bottom line. They are something that they have to do, but it costs them it doesn't make them earn more money. This is not true, actually, is it, Claire?
No, so there is now very much an increasing recognition of the business case for being sustainable and having sustainable and responsible business practices, and we see an increased pressure from consumers, especially I think in Europe, consumers asking and starting to ask questions about where the products come from and how human rights were impacted in these countries and the environment, etc. And as Bruno was mentioning earlier, the pressure from investor. It's something that we see increasingly. Investors now ask more and more from the companies investing for them to be able to show that they're taking active steps to respect human rights and the environment. And so there is very much, it might not be a short-term financial benefits, and I think that's what you were referring to. It might not be short-term profits, but if we look at the long-term, there's certainly a case for doing business responsibly and sustainably.
And we're seeing that with the clients that come in at PLMJ, they are asking for these kinds of services, or they actually already feel the need of these services.
Some of them already know. Others, I think, if they get good lawyers like us, they need to be told that they need to be looking at this. So we're setting up, not to name names, but we're setting up a really big project right now, and it's going to have an impact in the way that things are set up in a certain region of the country. And so it's basically, they're already aware of this, but for us, it basically makes sense to introduce them to the concept of social license to operate and the need to talk with the stakeholders and see what the social impact will be created around, because this is something that if it's not an immediate danger to their traditional authorization and license that they might obtain, it's a long-term concern that they need, because it's a long-term project. They need to make sure that socially the people that live near the project will accept this and see that there might be an advantage not only for them but for the whole country and the whole economy.
Because the social licensing, for the people that don't know what we're talking about, it's something around creating a formal goodwill of the different stakeholders, a contractualized goodwill of the different stakeholders that lasts for decades to come. How can you say that the project was good back then and now it's not 10 years after?
Yeah, in a sort of a way, it's making sure that you have the proper mechanisms in place to have that conversation with the people that are directly affected by your project, and to make sure that you have you have the proper channels for them to communicate with you and then suggest the relevant remedies. They might be suffering this or that impact, and so to make sure that the impact that the whole project has in the place where it's being implemented is they're aligned with everybody's needs and all of the stakeholders' interests around the project. So that's a concept that's a bit foreign for lawyers, but in a way it's close to how we already think about a project in terms of getting the proper licenses and more of the legal technicalities around setting up a project. But it's just broadening the scope and thinking about all of the relevant stakeholders and making sure that they're aligned with what you want to put in place in the project.
Claire, the center will gather a bunch of people, specialists, some of them international. What is your expectation of importing some of the good practices around the world into Portugal?
I think that for me that's really important. We indeed have a lot of research associates from various parts of the world, and I think it's really critical to learn some lessons from what already exists and also get a sense of where we're going. So, for instance, where I'm from in France, France was the first country in the world to adopt a law to actually require companies to make it legally binding for them to have human rights and environmental due diligence processes in place. So looking at the example of France is, for instance, extremely helpful to see what has worked, what hasn't worked, and where we're going with that. And now at the European level, we have a commitment from the European Commission that a law will be introduced later on this year, which will require all companies in Europe, possibly even non-European companies operating in Europe. So very wide scope indeed to have such human rights and environmental due diligence processes in place. And again, it's going to be important for companies to be able to comply with that law and to look at existing examples of corporate practices and existing examples of legislation and how these have been complied with. So having this comparative element, I think, is really key.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize this future legislation and 2 points around this. One is that, and Claire addressed that a little bit, that the scope that this will require from companies. So it's not just what you do on your business, is what your suppliers do, and even the persons that your suppliers are subcontracting on. So it's we always try to avoid, especially here at PLMJ, fear-mongering around future legislation, and it's not something that we do usually. But we want to make sure that people understand that this is going to be a real systemic change, and that if you can look back and remember what was happening around GDPR and the type of noise that created, it's something that won't be that different, especially because the type of sanctions that are being
thought on that,
or the project, the way that it currently stands, it's something that will have the sort of sanctions that the GDPR has. So it's going to be a really systemic change on the way that companies operate in Europe.
I forgot to ask, what is PLMJ bringing into the center? So what's our mission in the center?
So we, of course, want to take a lot from the centers. For us, it's really important to use that.
We're opportunists in the center.
And in a good way, I hope. But I think that we'll try to contribute our experience in the practical impact that this then has on companies. So I think that that's going to be a really interesting mix in terms of having Claire and the experts thinking about this on a day-to-day basis, and then we'd be giving our input on the impact that this might have on the way that companies operate, on the way that on the limitations that this might have, because, for example, this, of course, is hugely important for corporate groups, but there are limitations because corporate groups are made up by separate legal entities in a number of jurisdictions with different legal standards that sometimes are conflicting with the legal standards that we have in Portugal. So I think that's one of the
Don't scare people.
The key insights that we want. I'm not trying to fearmonger again. So.
Claire, we're just wrapping up here. Tell us a little about the big event we are thinking about doing.
So we are planning to organize a big business and human rights conference in November, just before the UN Forum on Business and Human Rights, and we'll be exploring these regulatory developments in that conference. It'll be joint endeavor of the Nova Center and PLMJ, and very, very excited about that.
We're also very excited. Claire, thank you very much. Bruno, thank you.
Thank you.
O podcast da PLMJ fica por aqui. Até breve.